Well, I just saw The Happening, and it was horrible. One of the worst movies I have ever seen. It should have been called What's Happening to M. Night Shamaylan, or however you say his name. And that's saying something coming from me, because The Sixth Sense was one of my all-time favorite movies. In fact, anytime, on MySpace, you have to do this anytime you say MySpace, or anything like that, you say, my favorite top 10 movies are, The Sixth Sense is always on there. Always. In fact, if you look at the graph, this actually shows, I don't know if you can see, this is how much I like The Sixth Sense, right here. This is how much I like The Happening. This line right here is 0, right there. I like The Happening a negative amount as compared to The Sixth Sense. That's saying something, and the graphs don't lie. In fact, if you look at this graph, this charts the amount of goodness of his movies over time. You can see it starts with The Sixth Sense, awesome, and it goes all the way down here, The Lady in the Water and The Happening. Now, this line here, this is what experts call the stop making movies line. Usually, it goes the other way. Usually you start out down here and then you progress upwards. And he seems to be going the opposite way, and I'm not exactly sure why. I just imagine, M. Night talking to, his friends and family, the only ones that go to see his movies, and like, so what do you think, guys? I'm like, oh, it's good. It's good. So, you think my movies are as good as Hollywood, like the Hollywood movies? They're different. I mean, it's hard to compare them. Yeah, but they're as good as Hollywood, right? Like as good as the big movies. Well, I mean, they're different styles. I mean, it's just too hard to compare them. It's like, well, but it's as good, right? It's just they're so different. Well, what do you mean? Well, I mean, most movies, they make movies that people want to see, and you make movies that are as bad as crap. The acting in this movie was horrible. Probably the worst acting I've ever seen in a major Hollywood movie. It was pathetic. Even Mark Wahlberg and the big name actors in there, not good. And everyone had that bad acting, like furrowed brow the whole time, because like this is how they act, like this is acting. This is how I act, as I do this. So every character's like, what are we gonna do? And I don't know, and such, and this, and everyone's like this all the time, and no one ever makes any other expression except for this. It's like they went to 7-Eleven and just said, hey, you guys want to be in a movie? Let's go. We're hiring. Come on, we'll pay you. It's like, yeah, we really stuck it to them. We don't need the guild. We don't need to pay actors to do this. Anyone can act, right? Wink. In all fairness, though, the actors didn't get much help from the dialogue, which was terrible. I mean, embarrassing. It was, no one can talk like that. It's like Shakespeare for no reason. Except Shakespeare, was good. So it had a reason. But it's like, Shakespeare, it's hard to say natural because no one talks like that. Well, no one says the things in this movie either. But he wrote it. So he's kind of like, he probably is a little too stubborn to change it. He's probably like, well, we should probably just leave it. We should probably leave that line as it is. Well, but I don't think, that doesn't really sound very natural. Well, but you should probably just read it just like I wrote it. Oh my God, no one talks like that. It's like a little girl coming up and, what is transpiring? Hush, youth. We need to calculate why this occurringness is coming forth. What are you saying? No one talks like that. No one. Mark Wahlberg said this was his toughest role. Well, yeah, it would be. How can you make that seem natural? I can hear the wind coming in from the outside. The worst part, and also the funniest part, was the fake news broadcasts. And it was so bad that it goes throughout the whole movie trying to explain what's going on, and like I say, like WNN, World News Network, because that's a real thing. In the corner, like the fake ticker and the green screen and the terrible acting. It's like an amusement park rides where you have the line going in the outside, and the like Back to the Future or whatever, and you have the TVs in the corner that are playing in loop the fake news broadcast to set up the experience that you're about to have. And it's like the guy is like, what? This just in. According to recent findings, really bad. Or like the infomercials where it's trying to look like a real show, but it's obviously fake. So what you're saying is, it cuts through the grease. That's right, Tom. I kept expecting a guy to walk in with like a white lab coat and a clipboard. I'm a real doctor. I really have no idea what he was going for with this movie. I mean, is it supposed to be a comedy? Because, well, we were laughing throughout the whole thing, whether it was supposed to be or not, but there were a lot of legitimately funny parts that were supposed to be funny. Like the whole second half of the movie it seemed like it was mostly comedy, but that doesn't make sense because, I mean, I can understand creating a light mood, you know, so that when you do something scary, like the contrast makes it really hard-hitting and unexpected, but it didn't work because you're just like, well, is this supposed to be funny too? Because it kind of is. And there's stuff for just no reason. Like a guy comes in and starts talking about hot dogs for no reason. Like, you know, the hot dog is a very misunderstood meat. And everyone laughs, and that was it. Like, he just goes on, and why was that put in there? Why did you include that, M. Night? I mean, I imagine that's probably one of those things he woke up at 5:30 in the morning and thought of, and, oh, I gotta write that down, and writes it in, and normal people would think back later and go like, oh, what was I thinking? You know, like maybe it made sense when I was tired and I first woke up, but man, that was a horrible idea. But instead, he's just like, well, I wrote it, so it must be brilliant. Let's say it. Get some hot dogs. Do you have some hot dogs? Do you guys have some hot dogs? Go get some hot dogs. Take the credit card. I make lots of money on my movies. You can do it. They're paying for it. It's worth it. And he really likes his exposition, too. I mean, the whole movie practically is just exposition, 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 and not subtle either. I mean, it's like he took all the exposition and was like, let's just have someone say it. That's the best way to do it, probably. And, you know, everyone's an expert at something. Everyone's a scientist, and well, my theory is that the trees and the blah 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 are coming to get us, and the spores, and probably it'll attack us in groups. And the other one's like, oh, like that one case on the internet where such and such and such and such, where it's like he's trying to convince us the whole time, like he's really insecure, like this could really happen, guys. Yes, it could. I'm serious. Look, like remember when those bees disappeared? Or, you know, like things that, like they said, scientists said this about flowers, so like this could really happen. And what about this part of science that someone said, like this has actually happened? It's like the whole movie is going, this can actually happen. This movie, this can actually happen. Like, why don't they just put M. Night in a box on the corner, just going, yep, that can happen. Yep, this is real. This happened right here. See this? I don't know if you guys can see this. This happened right here. I don't know. I've got graphs. I've got stuff you can look at. I got some websites. Let me just give you some URLs so that you can look through. I don't understand how M. Night has suddenly lost his ability to make movies. He was really good at first, and now he's like an independent director, straight out of film school, doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, you can't just lose your ability to do something. You don't just lose a skill. It's almost like those tales where the guy who doesn't know how to make movies or whatever, and he goes to the old wise man and said, I really want to make movies, and he gives them a pair of magic shoes. Here, these are magic shoes. Wear these shoes and you will be able to make amazing movies. And he goes, oh, thanks, and he puts them on, and he goes and makes an amazing movie, and he becomes really famous and makes lots of money, and he's everywhere. He can make all the movies he wants, and he has total freedom and everything, and everyone loves him. And then all of a sudden he like loses his shoes in a river or something, and he gets all scared, and he's like, oh no, what am I gonna do? And the old man's like, M. Night, those shoes are from my closet. There's no magic in them. The ability was inside of you all along. And he goes, oh, wow, thanks, man. Awesome. And he goes and makes Lady in the Water and The Happening, and then all of a sudden the old man's like, maybe we should look for those shoes.